Hi, this is Darren from PostgresCourse.com, and I have a broken cluster. When I try to start it, it failures. All right, so examine the log output. And there's a number of errors that can take place when we start a Postgres cluster where it'll just tell you to go to the logs. And that totally makes sense. That's where we expect to see problems indicated in startup. I'm going to try to start this one other way. I'll call PG control that startup script directly. Data directory, see if this works. I get the same issue. It tells me again, examine the log output. This cluster won't start. Now, there's something that I've noticed in class that kind of frustrates people is that if they're not used to working on the command line a lot, then what they encounter is this idea going back and forth to the logs. And every time they try to start Postgres, what do they end up with? They end up with another log. Now, recent versions of Postgres have mitigated this by having a single startup log. And so you could tail that file and follow it. But again, a lot of people aren't used to working on the command line. So what I thought I would share in this video is a quick way that I found, and it's actually also supported right in the Postgres documentation, of getting feedback from a broken cluster immediately. And let me show you what that is. Here in the bin directory, okay, so here's where in my installation, all of my Postgres binary files are. You can see common tools and utilities that we use for Postgres. Some of these are very familiar to you. There's pSQL, PG control we just used to try to start this cluster, PG dump all, PG base backup, familiar utilities. One that we rarely touch directly is here, the Postgres binary file. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's really what we used to call the postmaster. Now there's a symlink from postmaster to Postgres, but it's the master server process for Postgres. It is the Postgres server executable. And what a lot of folks may not know is that you can actually call it directly. If you call the Postgres executable directly and give it a data directory, then it will attempt to start. And from this output, you would think that I have a running cluster, but do I? I don't, right? We don't see any server processes running. We just see my various shell sessions. So let's make one modification to our PostgresQL.conf that will help us get better output from that server executable. And this will alleviate us from having to go back and forth constantly to the log locations. So I'm going to make one modification in PostgresQL.conf. And that is in the logging section. And it's referring to this logging collector. So you will have a configuration that's appropriate for your production environment in this section for whatever types of logging you need to enable in your environment, whatever log rotation and scheduling and things like that. However, if you just simply change the first setting log destination, as you see here, to standard error, that means it'll come back to the terminal, and you turn this logging collector off, which is the part of Postgres, the process that actually captures those into files. And now we try to start. Watch what happens when I start my cluster. Now, all errors that we're going to log files are coming right here to standard out. And so the first thing it says is, hey, I could not open pghp.conf. Now, I'll tell you at this point, there's several problems with this cluster why it won't start. But here's the first one. It can't find pghp.conf. So let's see if we can figure out why. So the data directory, and it looks like somebody put the wrong name on pghp.conf. Well, that's simple enough to fix, right? Okay, let's try to start that cluster again. Oh, and it looks like it's working. So you can see this is a really quick way to get quick and rapid feedback from Postgres regarding any errors. Now, this feels uncomfortable because now we can see that the server is running in the foreground, but that's pretty simple to fix, right? You just do a Control C. We'll turn our logging collector back on. And then we'll start the cluster like normal. Now, as we look at our processes, cluster is running. So if you haven't tried that before and you're debugging a Postgres cluster that has multiple configuration errors, then that's one way to get quick feedback without going back and forth into the log file or having two different terminals open where you're tailing the log in one and working in the other. This is just a quick way that I found is helpful to people that attend our classes to show them, hey, you can really find out really quickly what's wrong with your cluster by invoking the Postgres server binary directly.